All right. So I just wanted to thank Stephen for that electrifying reading as always. Yes, beautiful. Charging up the air, preparing us for Joanna Lilly's reading now. She's our featured reader, coming down to us all the way from, zooming into us all the way from Whitehorse. And Joanna has 3 books of poetry to her credit. She's got a novel to her credit, a book of short stories, and nominated for some very prestigious awards, including Fred Cogswell for poetry. And I, for one, am really looking forward to hearing what she's going to share with us tonight. So, and hopefully we'll have some time for a few questions and answers afterwards. So Joanna, please take it away.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Can you hear me okay? I should probably just check. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Lovely. Thank you. Okay. Yeah. It's amazing to be able to join you all. I'm in Whitehorse, which is in the Yukon, which is just north of you. So up next to Alaska. I know we get mixed up with Yellowknife a fair bit, but I'm in Whitehorse, so kind of on the left. So I am going to read some poems from my very new book, which is called Endlings. And it's out with Turnstone Press. Came out in March, and of course, like many people around the world, I had to cancel my book launch events. So it's especially lovely to be here and be able to connect with you, because of course we're all having to stay home for a little while. So it's called Endlings, as I say, and it's all about extinct animals. And about half of the poems are about animals or species that are definitely extinct because of what humans have done. And then I also wanted to kind of explore animals that existed before we came along as well. So it's not just a rant against human beings, although it's definitely that. So the first poem I'm going to read, it's about the ivory-billed woodpecker, which was apparently one of the largest woodpeckers in the world. And so it had a 20-inch body and a 30-inch wingspan, so pretty huge, beautiful black and white creature, and a red crest, very, very distinctive. And this woodpecker was in the deep south, and it probably went extinct. Well, people thought it had gone extinct, and then somebody called James Tanner was sent off to look for it in the 1930s. I have to check my notes so I get the dates right. And he found it, which was amazing. So he climbed up the tree to try and band the woodpeckers that were in a nest. And one of the babies was startled and fell to the ground, which was awful, but luckily he wasn't hurt. And he ended up taking some amazing photographs of this baby woodpecker with his guide. So it's worth looking those up online, these stunning photographs. And some people still think the ivory-billed woodpecker exists. So there are still people looking for it, and videos taken and people trying to work out if it really exists, but it's not really looking too promising. So this one is called Rewind. As if looking can force feathers into wingspan, into a flap of broad white trailing black between flared cypress boles, rising to bayou green. As if sloshing paddles, heaving water, waiting, can slap the double knock of a beak on wood into a microphone fixed to a canoe. Watch the flight online again. Press stop to bring the bird back. Reverse 11 wing beats to the first fuzzy push from bark to air. One bill was worth 3 buckskins, as far away as Canada, jewels for a warrior's crown. Beaks split to click together on a belt, red head tufts ripped to wrap a pipe. Watch the flight once more. Donate to save more hardwood habitat. Consider driving to Arkansas, renting a canoe and sitting, looking, listening, paddle dripping. So the next poem I'm going to read is about the spectacled cormorant. And something about cormorants, my heart lifts when I see them if I'm in Vancouver, or obviously I'm from the UK, so I spend a lot of time on coastlines. A little bit envious of you there on the inlet there as well, on Vancouver Island, although I really, really love Whitehorse and the landscape here too, and we have lots of rivers and lakes. So again, this cormorant is also apparently the largest cormorant. Not that I was trying to write a book about animals that were the largest or the biggest, but this one too was apparently the largest cormorant ever known, and lived in the Bering Sea region, and was unfortunately, it didn't really fly. I think it could fly, but it didn't really need to fly. And so it was very easy pickings for the fur traders and the whalers that were coming through in that part of the world. So it was probably extinct by about 1850. This is called Penguin of the North. A sunshine glint on water, a pendant pressing lightly on a heart, a breath and pulse in harmonic happy recognition of a long-necked, sloping oval, silhouetted on rock or post before a line of sky and sea. The Bering bird was gone 100 years after Stella, shipwrecked, first noted how one large, stupid, almost flightless creature could feed 3 starving men. They killed and cooked them the Kamchatka way, encased in clay, baked in a heated pit. Penguin of the North, flippering its small wings to fly submerged, diving deep, web propelled, down nearly 50 meters in cold, slow, circumpolar water, where the globe spins quickest, where the wet weight of darkness presses torpedo ribs. Back on rock, in air, the diver stretched its wings to dry them. Komondorski breezes quivered head feathers, restoring green and purple glimmers to its back. Each bird an easy seas for whalers and fur traders, scraping their boats to the stony shore, a busy truck stop on a water highway. So this next poem is about the Tasmanian tiger, which is a really, again, another fascinating creature that wasn't really a tiger at all. It was almost like a dog or a wolf, and it had stripes on its back, which is, I think, why people called it a tiger. And the last one, called Benjamin, died in Hobart Zoo in 1936. And this is another animal we don't seem to be able to let go of. And it probably went, died out in Australia, even before Europeans arrived. But there are still sightings in Australia and Tasmania as well, where it managed to survive a lot longer. And again, this was killed off. It was actually hunted. So we kind of deliberately tried to kill off the Tasmanian tiger because it was apparently killing sheep, but that is also very much contested, that it actually was able to do that because of the shape of its jaw. So this one is actually from the point of view of a Tasmanian tiger. I was sort of trying to explore sort of what animal consciousness would be like as well, so in some of these poems. So this is called If Rain Touched Me. The fence post is a broad white blur. Grass flickers in the foreground. You know what you're looking at. You can't stop watching. You wish I were in focus. You'd see for certain if I was limping. You're looking at my tail and thinking, I'm a fox. I must be, because I've been dead for decades. Yet foxes don't have a big head like this, or a long straight tail like this, or stripes, or a hopping gait. It's a limp, or else I'm more kangaroo than fox, more kangaroo than tiger. You've given me so many names. The first of you ate me, then covered my bones with stones. If rain touched me, you believe bad weather would come. The second of you shot me and chopped off my head for $1. You made me wolf, a scapegoat for the sheep you killed. Is it me in that blurry film? Why would I come within video range? Why did you want me dead so many times, yet now you aim your camera to shoot me alive? So I mentioned that I didn't want to just talk about animals that were definitely extinct because of us. I wanted to go further back before we existed, and this is one of those. This is one of those species. So this is a poem about Desmostylus hesperus, which was a hippopotamus, a kind of a hippopotamus that lived sort of on the Pacific and Pacific Rim, basically, that coastline on either side of that ocean. And it lived about 28 to 7 million years ago. So it was around for 21 million years, which is pretty amazing. This is called Water Diviner. Sand or shingle sliding in. I am burly, broad, firm-footed. I have found my rock to straddle, slosh, and anchor. Water sleep is a sluggish grace for those who are bulky on land. Water is the colour of me, flat-headed, only my eyes and nostrils popping the surface tension. Low-bellied, forelegs right-angled, braced. I aim my trowel head at mud roots. I move up the estuary for the food I know I eat, though my stone-turned bones won't tell. I bequeath my bullet-case teeth, my cast of ribs, my spine of wooden cotton reels, my neck as thick and cluttered as a fir cone. My genes will perish with my progeny, yet I am elephant, I am hippopotamus, I am every swim and wallow in the cooling waters of the ring of fire. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to read, I think, 3 more poems. I think I'm hopefully doing okay for time. I know it's a bit different when you're listening to poems on video. It's a whole different thing. So I'll read, I think, 3 more. And this one, again, I have a couple of poems in this book that are about species that are still alive. I had a plan for this manuscript, and then of course I'm not very good at sticking to plans, so I sort of threw in a few poems about some, like the polar bear and species that are endangered but still just about with us. And this is one of them. This is a northern rhinoceros, but it's actually about the very last male northern white rhinoceros, who was called Sudan, and he died on the 19th of March 2018, so not that long ago, and there are 2 females left, and lots of efforts to try and keep this species going, or it's a subspecies. There are, I think, 5 species of rhinoceros in the world, so fingers crossed that we can keep this one. So this is called White. The best job in the world is the worst job in the world. You scratch behind his ears. You slot hay into his letterbox mouth. You give him a belly rub. He's the last male northern white rhinoceros in the world, and you're stroking his sagging tarpaulin skin. You carry a gun. The poachers want his horns, even though they've partly been sawn off to try to protect him. You don't put down the gun when you flap your hands. When you flap your hands, the rhinoceros runs. He likes to play and run. He likes to be visited. The vet comes often now that the last male northern white rhinoceros's belly is always on the ground. His semen is safely stored. There are plans and funding drives. The vet will come today. You won't put down your gun. You'll make sure that what's left of the last male northern white rhinoceros's horns rot in the earth beside his banisters of bone and Carhartt hide. So a couple more poems. And these are more sort of general poems about extinction more broadly. Again, I sort of went off in many different tangents writing these poems. I was very lucky. I got some funding. I was able to go to lots of natural history museums like the Smithsonian and in New York, as well as in Canada, which was pretty amazing, just to connect with fossils and sort of find their stories and find the poem. Obviously, I didn't want to just write what would be a scientific paper, which would be impossible for me anyway, because I'm certainly not a scientist in any sense of the word. So this one is really about that feeling of, you know, what are we doing to this planet, and feeling that responsibility, and what on earth do you do with that? So this is called Confession. I've always known what I wasn't doing. There was no shock of realization. I've always had the knack of alibi, of being nowhere near the moral center, of walking past what I committed and pretending I didn't see. It might be those flies, the wings I ripped off as they skittered up the window, blaming Tracy, who started it, though that was no excuse, nor was being 6. I already knew what cruelty was and torture. I wish someone had slapped me. I'm penned inside eternal self-indulgence, a constant busyness with me. I'm the antonym to intellect, an aberration who will die out and end this hedonistic lineage. Some extinctions are unremarkable, some are even opportunity, no loss at all. Okay, my final poem. So this is almost the last poem in the book, and again, it's called It's Time to Talk of Hope, because although obviously this collection is not terribly hopeful, I do want us obviously to still retain that talk of hope, and it's very wonderful during this pandemic to, you know, one of those pandemic silver linings, just seeing how humans can change our behavior when we really have to or want to. And I'm really hopeful that when we come through this, that we start thinking about that and what we can do to try and help this planet of ours. So I will read this final poem. It's time to talk of hope. It's time to talk of human evolution, with a tapered blue mug of Earl Grey and a slice of spelt toast, while my dog rests her head on your feet, and your dog lies behind me, watching through the window for a yellow car. Sapiens are still becoming, we agree. Evolution never stops, of course, as long as moon and earth twist in locked rotation around an ending sun. Perhaps we can delay our inevitable extinction by persuading our DNA into a kinder transmutation. Perhaps we can augment our aptitude for wonder. In a single solar orbit, we discovered the existence of another 18,000 species. A Tinkerbell fairy fly fits 4 times inside a millimeter. A koala's fingerprints are the same as ours. A starfish, losing an arm, will grow another. Let us practice our amazement in case it saves us. Let us bend to count a slug's 4 noses instead of drowning it in a plastic pot of beer. Thank you very much.
Wow, that was beautiful, beautiful.
I'm going to get back to my gallery view so I can see you all again. I was switched to a big picture.
All right. Can you hear me, Joanna?
I can hear you very well.
Oh,
yes.
good.
Thank
Okay.
you. Yeah.
Those were spellbinding, beautiful, beautiful poems. Yeah, I love those. I want to open it up. We've got, about 10 minutes before we're going to take a little break. So I'd like to open it up if anyone has any questions they'd like to ask Joanna. And I think probably the easiest way is if you just put your hand up like that and Carl will unmute you.
I was going to start.
Okay.
Sounds good.
All right. So, I'll just open it up. Is there anybody out there who would like to ask a question to Joanna?
Just let people unmute themselves.
Okay, all right, sounds good. So just unmute yourself, just click your mute button down there and that'll unmute you and you can fire away.
Hi, Jackie.
Hi, first of all, thank you so much, Joanna, for responding to my my request to come and do this. What a treat to have the Federation of BC Writers bringing us a special guest from afar, like visiting wise people. So it's really lovely. And
it's brilliant to be able to do this. Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So tell me about some of the most interesting places you've visited on this odyssey of yours.
Well, yeah. I mean, I did go to quite a few natural history museums. So it was obviously, I couldn't go and visit the species, the animals, because they weren't here anymore. So I was trying to connect with their fossils and bones and, taxidermied recreations of them. I would have loved, if I had a lot more money, I would have loved to have gone to different landscapes where certain creatures existed. So I did write quite a few poems about northern species and species that would have lived here where I am in the Yukon and in Beringia, like the Beringian wolf and the short-faced bear, and there was a horse roaming around up here. It's pretty amazing. So I did I did try to, to sort of focus on landscapes I could connect with in reality. And also there's a little, well, not that little, but a fossil laboratory in Whitehorse as well. And I was able to go there, and they even let me touch. I didn't think I'd be allowed, but I was allowed to pick up these fossils. You know, it was amazing, and get inspired and make lots of notes. So that was incredible. And that was just in my town here. And then going to the Smithsonian was an amazing experience for me. I've never been to Washington before, and just being there on that mile of all these museums, it was just amazing. And I was grateful I got some funding from the Yukon government here to do that. I went to some zoos as well, and I know zoos are controversial, but I'm very grateful for what zoos are trying to do, you know, to conserve species. And I could see perhaps animals that were, what's the word, that were, you know, that their antecedents were extinct, but there were sort of representations of them as well. So that was really helpful. Yeah, and then looking online, like I say, I mean, I saw, you can look at the heath hen that's now extinct and see it scratching around, and you can actually, there was a new video of the Tasmanian tiger found only, I think, a couple of years ago at the zoo. I think it was the last species, I think it was Benjamin, and sort of, it's really heartbreaking. He's pacing, you know, he's pacing around his little concrete cage, but it is amazing what you can see and hear online. There's a recording of, I read the poem about the woodpecker, and there's a recording of that woodpecker's call, you know, which online, it's incredible. So I did do a lot of research just from my laptop. That's a long answer, sorry.
That's okay. A very enjoyable answer, Joanna. And I'm curious, just as a writer, how your process unfolded with these poems. So did you find them kind of line by line as you were doing your research? Did you sort of do the research as a whole and then sit down and create the entire poem? Or did it vary? Very
curious. So yeah, good question. If only there were clear, easy processes for these things. So it was a mixture. So I would, like I say, I would look online and get ideas about what creatures to write about, and I would just always look for the story, because I write fiction as well, and I know a lot of poets aren't sort of narrative poets, but I tend to be. So I would look for an emotional connection with a particular species. So it could be sitting at home on my laptop, but also, and then I might write those poems or draft them, and then I would go off to, say, Washington, which was amazing. And then I would, perhaps one or two poems would come out from that. And then like the following year, I might go to Ontario, the Royal Ontario Museum, Ottawa. And then, so it was kind of, it was a project for over a few years. So I was I couldn't just do all the research and then write the poems, because I would go a bit mad if I couldn't just try and write poems. Yeah, and I'm not very disciplined. So yeah. Like once you've got the idea, and I'm sure a lot of you feel the same way, you just have to write something there and then. So yeah. A bit of a mishmash, yeah.
Awesome, thank you. We've probably got time for a couple more questions if anyone else. Barbara, do you want to unmute yourself?
Oh, unmute myself, yes.
Oh yes, I can hear you actually, yeah.
No, Barbara, you're still
I
muted.
can't hear you.
I can't hear you. The opposite way. How about this?
Yes. Perfect. Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to thank you, Joanna. First of all, I love the idea of the book, and how heartfelt it is that you would write a book about these wonderful creatures. And I love that you put your voice into some of them. That was really wonderful to hear the Tasmanian tiger. Is it the same as the Tasmanian devil?
I don't think so, no. No, it's known as the thylacine as well.
Okay. And also, Yvonne introduced me to the Ivory-billed woodpecker, which I think is also called the Lord God woodpecker.
Yes, it is, because apparently that's what people said when they saw it, Lord God. I'm sure now they would say something a little less, yeah, anyway. Yeah.
Anyway, it was just
colorful
to hear, and I look forward to reading the book, so.
Thank you, that's kind of you, yeah. And it was fun to try and, imagine what they would be, sensing and what their consciousness would be, yeah. Rory, yes.
Question for Joanna. I see Derek at the moment.
Nope.
So can I carry on? So Joanna, I'm looking for probably another story that you have that you haven't really shared. And that would be when you were growing up, you obviously connected with nature. And do you have a story from where you grew up, from the landscape, from what you observed of nature? I call it ground truthing. You were there, you've seen things that impacted you and probably carried with you for the rest, right up until now.
Yeah, no, it's a really good question. Yeah, so I grew up in England, you can probably tell from the accent. And when I was about 3, my family moved us down to the West Country. So we were living in Devon, and we were living on the edge of Dartmoor. And I just loved it there. I just felt, so at home there. And I would roam, it was the 70s, and just go off on my bike and, do what you liked. I was the youngest of 5 children, so that helped too. No one really needed to know where I was. So it was more, I think, that connection with landscape, and even looking when there was snow, which wasn't very often, I'd go out and try and find sheep in the snowdrifts to save them and things like that. And then I remember coming across on my bicycle a little village fete. And I was maybe 7, I'm not really sure. And there was a stall there, and it had all these leaflets about saving animals. And I just remember, it's one of those memories you hang on to, sort of picking up all these leaflets and, about all different species that were in trouble. And I was so excited, and I just felt such a connection. And I remember putting them all in my bicycle basket and cycling home. And so it's a very good question. And for some reason, I've just always cared very deeply about animals, to the extent that I remember my father asking me if I loved my dog more than I loved him, and I really struggled to answer that question, which is terrible. But it was just something I've always had in me. Connection. So
thank you for sharing.
Thank you for that question. That was it was a really good one. Very interesting.
That's great. Thanks, everyone, and thanks so much, Joanna, for taking the time to answer those. We're going to take a little break now. But